It's very difficult for higher education institutions to change. While culture, tradition, and governance often serve as a positive stabilizing force, they also tend to inhibit major change and rapid adaptation. Accordingly, higher education has evolved, but its core still reflects industrial-age thinking. For example, today's college experience is best described as a batch process. The major determinant of the input is age, and the program of study follows a production line approach measured against a common set of standards aligned to a particular course of study. The traditional emphasis continues to be more on the educator and the institution, the factory rather than the product. That is, the student and their unique abilities. While this approach hasn't changed for decades, college costs continue to rise with no measurable gain in results. What we can measure is a student debt bubble forming with no graceful resolution in sight. A financial crisis is looming, which demands new thinking, not only in how we educate, but how we price that education. The adult segment of higher education, upon which the University of Maryland University College focuses, provides an apt forum to explore transformative solutions with step-changing results. University of Maryland University College, or UMUC for short, has a unique and important mission: to offer top-quality educational opportunities to adult students in Maryland, the nation, and the world, setting the global standard of excellence. Its goal is to offer academic programs that are respected, affordable, and accessible through a variety of technological and face-to-face formats. It was created and designed to broaden the career opportunities available to adult students in Maryland, improve their lives, and maximize their economic and intellectual contributions. UMUC is rooted in state statute, and its charter calls for it to operate as Maryland's open university, serving non-traditional students who reside in the state, or for that matter, anywhere in the world. UMUC was a pioneer in adult and distance education and established the academic standard. As a consequence, it remained the dominant brand for many years. The university now faces some turbulence, a new normal that includes new and credible providers in this realm, at a time when student enrollments in general are declining. There are several external forces that assure that this new normal will persist. First, adult student needs and priorities are shifting, and the economic challenges they face are growing. These students often have to balance the additional commitments of work, family, and community service with the traditional requirements of the classroom. New entrants with quality brands are emerging and taking hold of this educational space. And pricing competition is intensifying, especially from the very agile, for-profit institutions whose recognition and acceptance is growing. The technology associated with distance learning and distributed education is commoditizing, reducing the entry barriers that allow more entities to engage. And new learning methods and technologies, such as massive open online courses, or MOOCs as they're so called, have also disrupted the educational sphere of online and distributed education. Exacerbating the effects of these trends is the fact that the military, which constitutes nearly half of UMUC's students, is going through force size and base reductions. This minimizes UMUC's established advantage in infrastructure and global footprint. And potential tuition assistance reductions also threaten future enrollment volume, where future growth depends upon two things: the university's ability to capture share from those competing institutions, and its ability to make the adult education pie bigger. Unfortunately, UMUC's current operating model precludes it from meeting either challenge. So what does the university need to do? First, UMUC must find a way to reduce education costs. It needs to drive down costs through increased scale, and it needs to employ new technologies and teaching approaches to increase its effectiveness in appeal to a larger share of adult students. These new approaches present revolutionary learning opportunities for students, potentially creating new waves of learning and new waves of enrollment growth. The fundamental education needs of adult students are also changing. Today, there's a greater emphasis than ever before on better jobs and career advancement. As a result, UMUC will need to consider how to partner in new ways with employers, offering a variety of new programs, degrees, and certifications tailored to the dynamically changing needs of each industry. UMUC must also become more engaged in job placement and career services, not only conferring degrees, but also creating powerful alumni networks. If the University of Maryland, University College, is to grow, it must expand its presence beyond Maryland. Its focus must shift to be more student-centric, with learning tailored to the unique and individual needs of each adult student in a mass-customized way. This means enhanced ease of use, individualized to include personal dashboards, while employing new and progressive learning models. This includes competency-based approaches with prior learning assessments, adaptive software platforms, and immersive learning environments. So adult education in a fundamental sense has been disrupted. In one way, the old online approach has matured. In another way, it has been disrupted by the advances of the information age. It's clear that the industrial age production line of education falls short in the information era in which we now live. Market-leading companies remain on top by changing and transforming themselves ahead of, or in rapid response to, disruptive forces. But this is hard to accomplish. There are many examples of firms that were leaders in their marketplace and actually lost their positions because they did not transform. One could look at IBM staying with a mainframe business strategy rather than being a first mover in the nascent PC market. Or Sylvania, which was leading its industry in fabricating vacuum tubes and didn't focus on producing transistors because the vacuum tube business was so strong. And what about Kodak, which invented photography and actually created the first digital camera, but did not advance from film as its main medium? It lost its dominant position at a time when photography was actually growing exponentially. These companies either failed to recognize change, or if they did, were unable to adapt. Some were constrained by past successes of their business model or by huge capital investments. Others were constrained by denial, a hope that the market forces they were witnessing would not sustain. The culture of their organization did not allow them to change, or perhaps their leadership was not bold enough to drive the change. In this light, we thought it would be important to look at UMUC's position through the eyes of outsiders who are experts in strategy, change, and learning technology. This group, called the Ideation Group, looked at UMUC's competitive landscape, adult education market trends, technology revolutions, and the changing student demographics and their needs. From this assessment, insights were pulled together and a new value proposition was proposed for UMUC. The Ideation Group's work started with the mission of the university and held true to it. The new value proposition emphasizes student centricity in careers. It stems from the notion that the future is about getting better jobs, helping our economy, and regaining a competitive advantage for our nation. New educational approaches were explored that addressed all methods and techniques to help students succeed. It did not assume that the students were standard in any way, shape, or form, and it certainly did not make the batch processing assumption of born on date equals same ability. The new value proposition became the central element that led to the synthesis of new business model options. 7 in all. Each model was assessed along 3 dimensions: satisfying the mission, delivering the new value proposition, and accelerating market and enrollment growth. The ideation team also examined the cost of each model, considering the time it would take to launch, the complexity of the operation, and also the political factors associated with its realization. The group reached a consensus that the most effective model for UMUC would be a not-for-profit business entity linked to the university system of Maryland. This forum unleashes the institution from the culture and constraints of a state agency that it now faces. It makes it leaner, more agile, more responsive to the marketplace. It retains its brand and adheres to its original mission while delivering a new value proposition to its students. It will have an ability to compete and adapt to the new normal. UMUC is incredibly stable and leaner today than ever before. Its brand remains stellar. The market forces and competitive dynamics are telling us that change is needed now. The executive leadership is aligned and motivated for this change. It's now a matter of taking a bold step into the future to transform UMUC from an industrial age player to the information age leader that it can be in adult and distance education.